As they took their seats in the courtroom, Judge Harold Whitaker entered, his expression calm but alert as he looked over the gathered parties. A seasoned judge known for his fair-mindedness, he took his time adjusting his glasses and scanning the case file before beginning. "Good morning," he said, his voice steady and firm. "Before we proceed with the primary case, we have a preliminary matter to address." He looked toward Elena, California, and Sue's lawyer, with a nod. "I understand there has been a resolution regarding the theft charges." Elena rose, giving a respectful nod. "Yes, Your Honor. I have worked out an agreement with the prosecution. We are requesting the dismissal of the charges based on the circumstances and the boy's age. Macaulay's actions were driven by necessity, not criminal intent, and he has since been in a stable, supportive environment." Judge Whitaker looked toward the young prosecutor, who stood up and confirmed, "That is correct, Your Honor. The state is willing to dismiss these charges." Judge Whitaker nodded, and then turned his gaze to Macaulay. "Young man, would you come up here, please?" Macaulay glanced at California and Sue, who each gave him a reassuring nod. He stood, his small frame tense, as he walked to the front. Judge Whitaker softened his expression, motioning for Macaulay to sit. "Macaulay, I want you to tell me, in your own words, what happened. Why did you take things from people's homes?" Macaulay took a deep breath, gathering his courage as he looked up at the judge. I was really hungry, sir," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "I didn't have anywhere to live, and I didn't have any money. So I took food and a few dollars sometimes just to get by. I know it was wrong, but I didn't want to hurt anyone. I was just trying to survive." Judge Whitaker studied him thoughtfully for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you, Macaulay. You may go back to your seat." Macaulay returned, California and Sue both reaching out to give his hands a comforting squeeze as he sat back down. Judge Whitaker cleared his throat, his voice calm but clear. "Given the context and the agreement between counsel, the charges against Macaulay are hereby dismissed. I hope this will serve as a turning point for you, young man, as you move forward in a supportive environment." He then shifted his focus to the heart of the case. "We'll now begin proceedings regarding the petition to allow Macaulay's foster placement. The state may proceed with its opening arguments." The attorney representing the state, a woman named Ms. Colburn, stood and approached the front, her expression serious and composed. Though she could not openly express her bias, it was clear that her perspective aligned with Terry's views on the matter. She began her statement, carefully avoiding direct language about the couple's sexuality, but the undertones were clear to those paying close attention. "Your Honor," she began, "the state does not question the intentions of Ms. McGee and Ms. Smith. However, we believe that certain factors must be considered before granting them the responsibility of fostering a child, especially one with Macaulay's unique background and needs." She cleared her throat, casting a measured look at California and Sue. "First, it is relevant to note the brevity of their relationship. They have only been together for a short time, and the stability of that relationship may not yet be established. We believe a child who has endured significant instability deserves a home where the relationship foundation is firm and long-standing." Ms. Colburn glanced at her notes, pausing deliberately. "Additionally, it is the state's view that children benefit from the presence of a legally recognized married couple. While Ms. McGee and Ms. Smith have shown dedication, they are not married, and we believe Macaulay would benefit from placement with a family that reflects a traditional, stable environment." Her gaze sharpened, and she added, "Lastly, Macaulay is a member of a Native American tribe, a unique cultural background that cannot be overlooked. It is the state's view that placement with members of his own community would offer him the opportunity to connect with his heritage and preserve his cultural identity." As she finished, her tone was unwavering, and she returned to her seat, leaving a murmur of tension in the courtroom. California and Sue felt the weight of her words, the subtle but pointed arguments woven throughout, and they knew they were in for a fight. The state's arguments had left California and Sue feeling gutted, a sinking feeling settling in their stomachs as Miss Colburn's words hung in the air. But Elena, with her steady presence, leaned over and gave them a reassuring nod, her gaze filled with quiet determination. When Judge Whitaker gestured for her to begin, Elena rose, straightening her papers and stepping forward to address the court with an air of confidence that immediately eased some of the tension. Your Honor, I'd like to begin by addressing Sue Smith's qualifications, she began, her voice clear and unwavering. Sue is not only a college graduate in business management, but also a former varsity band member who dedicated herself to her studies and her community throughout high school and college. She has shown a remarkable commitment to achieving her goals. Elena glanced over at Sue with a warm smile. Today, she is the owner of a highly successful floral business. She manages her company with the same dedication she has shown in her personal life, and she owns her home outright, with no debt levied against her. Financially, emotionally, and practically, she is a stable and capable adult who could, on her own, provide a wonderful home for any child. A few heads in the gallery nodded in approval, and Elena pressed on. In addition to her personal qualifications, Sue has excelled in the state-mandated foster care training courses, demonstrating an eagerness to learn and a readiness to support a child. And let's not overlook the incredible support system she has in place. Sue's parents, Robin and Roy, are actively involved and have shown tremendous love for Macaulay. This is not just a couple fostering a child. It is an entire extended family dedicated to creating a safe, stable environment for him. Judge Whitaker listened attentively, nodding as Elena continued. She then shifted her focus to California, her voice steady but gentle. Ms. McGee, or California as she's known, brings something to this case that few other potential foster parents could: firsthand experience of the foster system. She grew up within it, and she understands intimately the challenges that children face when bouncing from one placement to another. Macaulay isn't simply another case to her. He's someone she sees herself in. She understands his pain, his fears, and his dreams in a way only someone who has lived it could. Elena took a breath, her voice softening as she addressed a hard truth. Your Honor, as it stands, there is a critical shortage of foster parents willing to take on teenage children. Many foster families prefer younger children, and for teenage boys like Macaulay, the odds of finding a placement willing to give them the stability they need are slim. Even with the national attention this case has received, no one from his tribe has come forward to offer him a home. At this moment, the courtroom doors opened and everyone turned to see John Littlefield entering, his face set with a calm but unmistakable intent. A clerk approached him, whispering something into his ear as he settled into a seat. Judge Whitaker observed the entrance, nodding curtly before turning back to Elena. Proceed, he instructed. The brief interruption threw Elena slightly, and she could feel the tension heightening in the room. But she took a steadying breath and resumed with her closing points, projecting confidence. Your Honor, she continued, her voice regaining its strength, California and Sue are offering Macaulay not just a temporary placement, but a home filled with love, dedication, and support. They are ready and willing to meet every challenge, and they have already proven their commitment. Given the unavailability of other suitable placements, there is simply no reason to deny Macaulay the chance to stay in a home where he is not only wanted, but needed. She finished, her gaze meeting Judge Whitaker's as she concluded, It is my firm belief, and I hope the court will agree, that this couple is the best possible placement for Macaulay. They have built a life and a family around him, and to separate them now would do more harm than good. Elena returned to her seat, her face calm, but her eyes reflecting the intensity of the moment. California squeezed Sue's hand under the table, her heart racing as they waited. The courtroom was still, the tension so thick it felt like it could be cut with a knife. Ms. Colburn rose, her expression steady as she adjusted her papers. She cleared her throat and glanced around the room, her gaze landing briefly on California, Sue, and Macaulay with a hint of calculation. Your Honor, I would like to introduce a significant new development in this case, she began, her voice carrying a note of confidence. We now have a petition from a member of Macaulay's tribe, Mr. John Littlefield, who has expressed his desire to provide a home for Macaulay. She gestured to Littlefield, who sat calmly, his posture poised and confident. Mr. Littlefield is not only a highly regarded member of the Tachiyoka tribe, but also one of its wealthiest. He owns a vast estate, an expansive mansion surrounded by acres of pristine land, equipped with a stable of horses and other amenities that could offer Macaulay a life filled with comfort and opportunity. As she spoke, she held up documents showing images of Littlefield's property, a large, luxurious mansion set against rolling green hills, with manicured lawns, a stable of horses, and a private lake glistening under the sun. The opulence was undeniable, a world far removed from anything Macaulay had ever known. Miss Colburn continued, Mr. Littlefield's estate is only one of several properties he owns. He is the sole owner of a highly successful casino on tribal land, which generates significant revenue, allowing him to provide a lifestyle of wealth and security for any child under his care. Furthermore, Mr. Littlefield is well known for his social influence, maintaining a strong presence online as a popular influencer. His resources and network provide an environment that few foster parents could rival. At the mention of Littlefield's casino, she held up a financial report detailing the impressive earnings and steady profits generated by his business. As you can see, Your Honor, he has the financial means not only to support Macaulay, but to offer him experiences and resources that most children can only dream of. The judge reviewed the documents carefully, his expression unreadable. But then Miss Colburn's tone shifted slightly, growing almost conversational. Now, while Mr. Littlefield is a well-known social figure who enjoys the finer things in life, he has never been involved in any criminal activities, nor has he faced legal troubles. His record is entirely clean. Though he is unmarried and, yes, known for his relationships with women and his flashy lifestyle, this does not detract from his capability to provide a safe, secure environment for Macaulay. In fact, his connections and affluence could be seen as assets, ensuring that the child will lack for nothing. California felt her heart begin to pound as the state's case unfolded before them. She could feel Sue's hand trembling slightly in hers, both of them growing more worried as Miss Colburn painted Littlefield as an ideal candidate. The lavish lifestyle, the grand estate, the financial security, it all felt overwhelming, almost insurmountable. Macaulay, seated beside them, glanced up, a flicker of fear in his eyes. California put a gentle hand on his shoulder, offering a small, reassuring squeeze, but the sinking feeling in her stomach was hard to ignore. Miss Colburn paused, letting her words sink in before adding, given Mr. Littlefield's heritage, connection to Macaulay's tribe, and impressive resources, we believe he represents the best placement for Macaulay, allowing him not only to maintain his cultural ties, but to be raised in an environment of wealth, opportunity, and security. She sat down, her gaze calm and satisfied. The courtroom felt tense, the weight of the arguments heavy in the air. California and Sue exchanged a worried glance, feeling the pressure mounting. Littlefield's entrance, his polished appearance, and Miss Colburn's confident case painted a picture that left them feeling uncertain and afraid of what was to come. Elena stood, her face composed but determined. Your Honor, I respectfully request permission to approach the bench, she said, her voice firm but respectful. This sudden introduction of Mr. Littlefield's petition is highly irregular, and I believe a private discussion is in order. Judge Whitaker's eyes narrowed as he glanced from Elena to Miss Colburn, considering the situation. After a moment, he nodded. I'll allow it, he said, his voice carrying a note of gravity. Court is in recess for 15 minutes. Miss Colburn and Ms. Ortega, please join me in my chambers. The judge gavelled the court into recess, and the attorneys exited through a side door, leaving the courtroom in a low murmur of tension. California, Sue, Macaulay, Robin, Roy, and Father Trevors filed out into the hallway, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. Elena paused just before following the judge, turning to the group. Everyone, please try to stay calm. I know this feels overwhelming, but this isn't over. We'll address the situation, and we'll make sure the court hears the truth. She looked each of them in the eyes, her expression filled with reassurance. Remember, don't panic. This is just a curveball, and we're prepared for that. They nodded, taking in her words, though the worry lingered in their faces. She gave them a final encouraging smile and disappeared down the hall toward the judge's chambers, leaving them to wait. In the quiet hallway, the five of them huddled together, anxiety settling like a heavy cloud. Macaulay leaned into California, his face pale and uncertain, and she wrapped an arm around him, pulling him close. The usually confident Sue looked down, her hands fidgeting as she fought to stay composed. Robin reached out, squeezing California's shoulder. We've faced tough things before, sweetheart, and we're going to get through this one too. Don't lose hope, Roy added, his voice calm. We're here for you every step of the way. Whatever happens in that room, just remember that we're a family. But it was Father Trevors who truly brought a sense of peace to the moment. He stepped forward, his gaze soft but resolute. California Sue Macaulay, no matter what obstacles you face, remember that love is the foundation of your family. That's a strength no legal argument can take away. He placed a hand on Macaulay's shoulder, looking into his eyes. Macaulay, you are surrounded by people who love you deeply, and that will always be true. There's a verse from Isaiah that I often turn to in times like this. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. He paused, his gaze sweeping over each of them, letting the word settle. You are upheld by love, by faith, and by each other. Whatever the outcome, remember that you have created something beautiful, something that cannot be undone. Macaulay looked up at him, his eyes glistening with tears, but a small smile formed on his face as he took in Father Trevors's words. California held him close, her own eyes wet, feeling an unbreakable strength flowing through their small circle. Robin wrapped her arms around Sue and California, pulling them into a hug, and Roy joined them, forming a tight embrace. The tension began to ease as they held one another, letting Father Trevors's words fill their hearts, replacing fear with resilience. They didn't know what would come next, but in that moment, standing together, they found a quiet, determined courage that would carry them through the battle ahead.